I'm honored to present our speaker today. This is Alicia Belay, who has a doctorate from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee in social and health psychology and worked as a psychology professor in Wisconsin for much of her career. Alicia first became connected to Rotary during her time as a professor when she was looking for opportunities to share her annual experiences during doing service and research in Africa. After leaving her position as a professor, she was awarded a Rotary Global Grant Scholarship to enter graduate school abroad. And I'm hoping that we get to hear her talk about that today. She went to Gondor, Ethiopia. She earned a master's degree in public health in 2017. Since that time, she has been an active Rotarian and has been the lead of multiple grants in Africa and locally with indigenous communities. Alicia currently works with the North Dakota Department of Health within the Health Equity Office. She is married to an Ethiopian and they have one child together. She and her husband are both passionate about serving in Africa and have started a nonprofit called GCA. And Alicia, I never got to know what GCA stands for, so you can tell us what that is. GCA Thrive, to help create job opportunities in Ethiopia and in Kenya. Please help me in welcoming Alicia.
Welcome, Alicia, and this is set up for screen share. I believe you're probably going to screen share with us.
Thank you. I will share a screen with you. Let's see if I can figure it out. It's always a challenge here to see if I can figure out how to share my screen properly. Okay, if I do that, are you seeing the screen? What are you seeing now?
We're seeing the screen.
You are.
We can see your screen.
Excellent. I can't see any of you, so if you have questions or anything, you'll have to just reach out. And I'm actually going to switch my internet because it looks like my internet is. So thank you so much, Tina, for welcoming me. I got to meet Tina. We've never actually seen each other face to face, so this is our first time seeing each other. We've talked a lot on the phone, and it was so exciting to have this connection in California, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm going to be talking about the Ethiopia Small Business Development Global Grant that you all are a part of. The picture up here shows one of my first experiences in Ethiopia as a Rotarian. Me and these other Rotarians in the little banner there, we were working on a Polio Plus project across Gondar. We had a huge parade of people that just marched around with this poster, and it was a very fond memory. So I'm just starting out today with a slide about that, because it really all my work in Ethiopia started with this Global Grant Scholarship, and I will talk about that briefly today. I wanted to just first and foremost start by thanking you all. So you've contributed to the grant that we're talking about today. So everything I'm talking about today, all of this Rotary work, it comes back to Rotary clubs choosing individually to support this work. So thank you for being willing to do that. I want to give you a little background before I start talking about the actual grant, and I'm hoping I'll be able to come back to your club and talk to you a little more about the grant later on, because today is just kind of a preview of what kind of led to this grant. So first of all, as Tina mentioned, I kind of started my Rotary work, well, even before this Global Grant Scholarship. I started the work I'd been doing a lot of Africa travel, and I'd come back and want to tell people about the needs there, and I found a really warm and welcoming space in Rotary. So in 2015, I had left my professor job and I wanted to go into public health. I applied for a Global Grant Scholarship here in North Dakota in District 5580, and I was in Ethiopia for 2 years getting my master's degree. And I also want to tell you about some of the other grants that I've worked on because of that. So we were able to build a well through District 5580, and that was a well in the area where I was doing my scholarship. And we were also able to do a District 5580 project in 2018, where we trained 50 women who were received microloans and started small businesses. So that was a $25,000 project. And they finished their final report last spring, and that was a successful project. So I wanted to mention this background because I think it's important that that when you see these global grant scholarships that are global grants that are happening, a lot of times there's a huge backstory. There's relationships that need to be built. And then though I'd been building this relationship, it's clubs like you that are contributing, even though you maybe don't have as much of a relationship with these particular organizations that we're working with, you jump on board and make this stuff possible. So it's really a team effort across all of us. So here's just a picture from my Global Grant Scholarship. Tina had mentioned I could talk a little bit about that today. So Global Grant Scholarships are global grants. They require an international partner and a local club that's willing to partner. And so in my case, I worked with the Rotary Club of Gondar Facilities, and that's the same partner that we're working with today on our Global Grant Scholarship. Now it's 6 years later. So this was part of my class in my program. There were 65 Ethiopians. Most of them were men. There was a couple women and me. So it was quite a learning experience to be in such a different culture and surrounded by people who were different from me. And even, being a minority gave me a lot of good glimpses of what it's like to face a lot of challenges, being the only one who looks a certain way, and I didn't speak the local language. So I think the Global Grant Scholarship was a very big challenge for me, even though I had lived in Africa before. It was still quite a different experience to be there as a student rather than as a mission worker or a nonprofit or a researcher. Being there as a student with the other students was really an important experience and very humbling for me. I got a chance to engage in a lot of professional activities. So this was a big conference and some fancy people there. The guy that's in the jacket next to me is a pretty fancy researcher. I've stayed in touch with him, and he's actually been able to give me feedback on some of the work that I've been doing since then. So a lot of good connections get made through these global grant scholarships. And I was able to do focus groups with women in the community. So my master's thesis was focused on pregnant women and challenges that they face in the rural areas with prenatal care. And you'll see that master's degree then led to lots and lots of work in maternal child health. So these little villages, I looked at 6 different rural health centers, and we had about 850 women, I believe, that we did surveys with. And then we ran these little focus groups to get their opinions and thoughts. So during that time of my scholarship, I was able to meet Hibist, and she is a Rotarian. She's currently the president of her club, I believe. And we're shaking hands because we have figured out how to build a well. The man that is in the picture is from the water district. So he was agreeing to help us build a well. And this was my first experience of being, instead of on the receiving end of being a global grant scholar, I was actually helping to lead a grant to build a well in one of the communities where I had been doing my research. There had been no water, and the health center had reached out to me and said, how are we supposed to have a health center that's sanitary if we don't have any water? And I reached back to District 5580. I told them about the problem, and they helped me write a district grant for just under $6,000, I think. And we were able to build a well in this area called the Dembia district area. And here is a picture of the well that we built. And you can see it says in kind of weird little letters there at the bottom, Rotary Club District 5580. So folks being able to receive water and have sanitation through the work of Rotary was an exciting opportunity. And it was an exciting start for a relationship to do the grant that you all have contributed to. So in 2020, we are doing an Ethiopia economic development project. Actually, I think that slide was supposed to be later on. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what global grants are, because you all have contributed to the global grant. I'm sorry, my slides got a little bit mixed up because I made some changes, just talked to Tina just before this, and she said to give some background. And so I tried to pull some slides in to tell you a little more about global grants and such. So sorry that they're a little mixed up, but I wanted to tell you just about global grants in general. So I had been involved in that small well project. That was a district grant, but global grants require a lot of partnerships, and they requirements are changing and have changed just in the last month. But what they always require is an initial international partner and a local partner. And then from there, you need to do a lot of fundraising because typically clubs are not able to contribute a huge chunk of money. They're able to contribute 1,000, 500. I've had clubs that have contributed 100. And it takes an awful long time to reach a goal of something like 110,000 when you're going in those small increments. But this project here that's on the slide was a project that was really an exciting project where we were able to serve Indigenous women here in North Dakota and in the Midwest. We have 5 different health centers that serve Indigenous women. 4 of them are serving tribes. And we were working to help them develop group prenatal care. So just an enhanced kind of prenatal care. We worked closely with March of Dimes, and we were invited to fly to New Mexico and talk about our project. And so we have 3 of the partners from the different health centers were there with me to talk about this, and we were able to present a panel on behalf of Rotary. I swiped my Rotary banner from my club in order to come down to the conference and have some Rotary gear at this event. So for this Indigenous group prenatal care project, our club raised $110,000. We had 39 entities, 8 different countries contributing, and it took us 2 years almost of fundraising. So me doing talks like this was very common, me putting things in newsletters, talking at every district conference, anything I could do to get clubs to jump on board. And we had an amazing kickoff where the different health centers came in and got trained in how to provide this care. We had speakers from around the country, including our Indigenous, one of our Indigenous leaders on this project is Bernice. She's up at the top there speaking. We had a diaper drive. We had a big dinner. So you can see me and my husband and my son and niece there eating dinner, and the community was welcomed there. We had 5 different Rotary clubs there. So one of the things I love about global grants is even though they take a lot of time, you really, or can take a long time because you need to have over $30,000, I believe $35,000 is the minimum that you can have as a budget. Once you do all of that work, all that footwork, you're really invested, and other Rotarians are invested too. So we had so many Rotarians that contributed, that were excited about this project, that are continuing to ask how things are going, and there really is a sense of community that can develop. So that's one of the things I love about global grants. So before this project, so now I should be back a couple of slides. After coming back from Ethiopia, I did start working on another project in Ethiopia. So we built the well with this Rotary Club in Ethiopia. We wanted to then work with the same organization, but we wanted to do microloans. And so in 2018, we did a microloan project where we were able to fund 50 women to be able to start their own businesses. And we had a $25,000 budget, and this was a district grant, and it went really well. So here's a couple of pictures of our recipients. They were able to choose the kind of business that they wanted to start, and then they received job training, banking information, how to bank. Many of them are not literate, so they'd never had a bank account before. They'd never saved money before or anything like that. And the grant was so successful. In 2020, they submitted their final report. They submitted their success stories. I believe your club has probably seen some of those materials because I know I sent them to Tina as you guys were deciding whether you wanted to contribute to this project. So since that was so successful, so first we did a well, now we did this $25,000 district project. Now we're talking about the current project. So in 2020, we wanted to do another project, and we wanted it to be even bigger. We wanted it to be a global grant this time. Global grants are pretty exciting opportunities to have your money really doubled and tripled. So again, the requirements have changed, but in the past, TRF, so the Rotary Foundation, would actually match dollar for dollar any of the district funds, any DDF, district designated funds that were contributed. It would be matched dollar for dollar. So if you've got $10,000 contributed from your district, all of a sudden it's $20,000. So that's pretty exciting. They have, I believe this month they changed that, so they're not quite matching it dollar for dollar, but it used to be that your money pretty much tripled. I think now you're kind of looking at more around doubling your money. Clubs that would contribute would also get a partial match from TRF. So if you had district designated funds matched dollar for dollar, you have club funds matched at 50%, you could really do a lot with smaller amounts of funds that you've raised from local clubs. So we wanted to do a global grant because we wanted to have that benefit of working closely with RI. We wanted to have a benefit of having our money really creating a bigger impact. So we worked towards a project that would be twice what we had done at the district level. So a $52,000 budget was what we had, and we wanted to train more than 100 women if we could. So we worked with many different clubs. I believe we ended up with, you know, over 10 different clubs that contributed to this project, including yours. And we were able to raise the money that we needed to get the match from the Rotary Foundation. To do a global grant, you do need to do things like a community assessment. So I had to work closely with the community organization to ensure that they could do a community assessment and identify that there's a need in the community for this, that there's mechanisms to support this project. And we had wanted to do microloans, so having the women actually pay back the money, but because of some of the requirements and restrictions within RI, we were not able to do that. So instead, we're kind of doing product purchases. So instead of giving the women $500 and telling them to go buy stuff and then pay back the money, we're buying the materials for them and they don't have to pay it back. The first funds were sent in January. So the project was approved, I think, in November or December. And the first funds were sent in January. And we've had 40 women trained. So I'm going to show you a couple pictures of those women. So here's some of the women. They're being trained on how to make traditional bread called injera. So they're holding up a little sign that says, "Thank you, Rotary," and a sign that says, "Thank you, Woogan." So Woogan is the local organization, in addition to the local Rotary Club that's supporting this work. They look very happy on this picture. So that's not very common for Ethiopia pictures. Many times people don't smile. So I think this shows some genuine excitement about this project. And then here you can see these folks were in town. This was an urban area where they did this training. Folks are wearing masks, but they are thanking Rotary again and thanking Woogan. There's a couple people with disabilities on the ground. We've had a little chance to kind of talk with them and see how the project is going. So that's been exciting. But other than this, so we're expecting 120 women to get trained, but Ethiopia is having some challenges. And of course, we don't have time to talk about that in depth, but as you might know, there's almost a civil war happening in the northern part of Ethiopia. This has been pretty dangerous for a lot of people. They've lost family and friends in this process. My husband's family has been affected as well and had to escape to Sudan and stay in refugee camps there while the fighting is occurring. You know, there's some serious issues with people having enough food and so on. But then specifically in the Gondar area where this project is taking place, one of the major challenges folks are facing is that COVID has really left people without financial resources. And, you know, the few folks that maybe sold bananas weren't able to sell their bananas during the COVID time. And so people are desperate. Maybe more desperate than they have been in the past, even though this has been a difficult area before COVID. But people are getting kidnapped and murdered, and people are getting taken for ransom in the Gondar area. And so we've really heard from my husband's family as well that it's very difficult to go out and meeting in groups or getting transportation to go to a group and start training is really a challenge. People are staying close to home. And they kind of have restricted travel within the city to maintain their safety. And this would be especially true for single women coming to this kind of training. So we're not making as quick of progress as we had hoped with this project, but I do hope to come back to your club in a couple of months and talk with you more about the project and get some more pictures. So these were just our initial photos, and we'll have pictures of people actually doing the projects on the ground. We also have Tina mentioned the nonprofit that I have. So my husband and I started GCA Thrive, which stands for Global Connections to Africa. And our nonprofit has signed an MOU on this project with Rotary, and we have agreed that we will do some of the publicity and publishing. So we're working on some magazine articles to submit to the Rotary magazine about this project. And we have phone numbers of the women in this project. So we are going to be calling them. My husband speaks Amharic. One of my board members on the at the GCA Thrive speaks Amharic language as well. So they will be calling these women and getting their real life stories about how the project is going. And I hope that I'll be able to present that to you in a couple of months. So that was really the end of what I wanted to present today. I hope that you'll reach out to me anytime and ask me more questions, and just really happy to get a chance to talk with fellow Rotarians. And again, really want to thank all of you for inviting me, and certainly thank you for supporting the project. So I'll
Thank
take
you,
any
Alicia. Thank you very much. It's great to hear about how Rotary can fulfill that vision of making changes across the globe.